Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at something that feels like it's been hovering on the edge of reality for years.
Mm,
Smart glasses.
right.
You've likely seen the buzz around Xreal's Project Aura. Are these finally going to be a seamless part of our lives? Or, maybe not.
That's the central question, isn't it? We've gathered a range of information from the very recent unveiling of Xreal's Project Aura at Google I/O 2025
Just this week, yeah.
to the lessons learned from, well, the whole Google Glass saga, and even the intriguing possibilities of open source smart eyewear like the AugmentOS project.
Okay.
Our goal today is to go beyond the hype, really, and try to understand what Project Aura signifies for the trajectory of this technology.
Exactly, because smart glasses have had a bit of a roller coaster history. I mean, the initial buzz around Google Glass back in 2013, undeniable.
Oh, absolutely. Huge hype.
But then it didn't quite land with consumers, did it? So what
Yeah.
could make this new effort, with Xreal and Google leading the charge, different this time? Let's dive deeper into that.
Okay, so the initial news itself is pretty significant. At Google I/O, Xreal unveiled Project Aura.
Right.
And a key piece of information, maybe the key piece, is that these smart glasses will operate on Google's Android XR operating system.
Android XR, okay, that's Google's dedicated OS for extended reality, right?
Mm.
Designed for headsets and now glasses.
Mm.
Isn't that the same platform Samsung's Project Muhan headset is using? Seems like Google's really building out a foundation here.
Precisely. Project Aura is only the second announced device to use Android XR. It's a strong indicator of Google's bigger ambitions in the whole XR market.
Okay.
And what's fascinating here is this three-way alliance. Google doing the software platform.
The OS.
Xreal bringing their hardware design expertise, especially in lightweight stuff.
Yeah, they're known for that.
And Qualcomm supplying their specialized Snapdragon XR chips, optimized for these kinds of devices.
So a division of labor. Maybe that helps overcome some of the hurdles from before.
It could be the idea. Spreading the load, focusing expertise.
And the emphasis on lightweight optical see-through glasses sounds key. It makes me think of those bulkier VRR headsets.
Like Vision Pro.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Which basically strap a screen to your face, blocking your view. Optical see-through is different.
Totally different.
Yeah.
It's more like having, subtle digital info overlaid onto the real world through transparent lenses.
So you can still see everything around you clearly.
That's the goal. And it's a deliberate direction for Xreal, sticking to their focus on making glasses that actually look more like, well, glasses.
Right. Less sci-fi prop, more everyday wear.
Hopefully. We don't have all the details yet, of course. More info is expected at the Augmented World Expo in June.
Okay, so soon.
Yeah. But based on the initial product renders, we can see cameras, looks like in the hinges and maybe the nose bridge.
Suggesting what? Environmental awareness? Recording?
Potentially.
Yeah.
We also see what look like microphones and control buttons in the temples, for interaction. No price or release date yet, though.
Still early days then.
Very. But what catches your eye the most about this first look?
Honestly, that optical see-through aspect,
Oh.
the idea of having information right there, but without being cut off from the world, that feels way more practical for daily life, which kind of leads to the question about Google's strategy with Android XR. It feels like a serious move to compete with Meta, with Apple, in this whole extended reality space.
Exactly. For Google, getting widespread adoption of the platform is crucial. They need devices running Android XR, lots of them.
To attract developers.
Absolutely. You need devs to build compelling apps. An ecosystem doesn't build itself, right? No apps, no reason for people to buy the hardware.
Makes sense. And Xreal, what's in it for them?
Well, they get access to Google's pretty advanced tech, the existing Android developer base, which is huge.
And Google's marketing muscle, presumably.
You bet. It's a potentially powerful partnership for them.
We even have that quote from Hugo Swart, Google's XR guy,
Senior Director of XR Ecosystem, yeah.
talking about expanding spatial experiences to OST form factors that are truly intuitive and accessible. Really seems to highlight that user-friendly focus.
And Google's positioning Android XR as something even more fundamental. They're calling it the first Android platform built in the Gemini era.
Gemini. So heavy AI integration.
That's the signal. AI deeply woven into the core experience, not just an add-on.
Which we're already seeing glimpses of in some demos, right? Like voice commands for calendar entries.
Yeah, or local search results from maps appearing as an overlay in your vision.
Replying to messages, hands-free.
Yeah.
Real-time language translation. That sounds genuinely useful.
Yeah.
Like actually helpful day-to-day.
It does. And then there's the style angle. Google's working with brands like Gentle Monster and Warby Parker.
Oh, yeah. The actual eyewear companies.
Exactly. To create stylish designs, it shows they understand aesthetics matter. People won't wear clunky tech, especially on their face.
Definitely seems like a lesson learned from, well, the past.
Ah, yes. The past.
Let's talk Google Glass. Launched back in 2013, the whole Glass Explorers program.
$1,500 a pop.
Yeah, pricey. And it had a 5-megapixel camera, 720p video. Capabilities that, even now, sound reasonably decent on paper.
Technically, yeah, it was quite innovative for its time, but its introduction to the public was, let's say, complex.
Complex is one word for it. The biggest hurdle was privacy, right? Widespread concerns.
Massive concerns. People just got really uneasy about the idea of being recorded without knowing it, without consent.
And it wasn't just theoretical. I remember hearing stories, people feeling weird around Glass users, that constant surveillance vibe.
And businesses, some put up signs, right? No Google Glass allowed.
Yeah, like specific bans.
Exactly. That strong public backlash was a huge factor in them pulling the plug on the prototype in 2015.
They did release enterprise editions later for businesses.
Right, aimed at specific industry uses. But the consumer market attempt, it fizzled.
But clearly, Google didn't just give up on XR because now we have Android XR. So what key lessons do you think they took away from Glass?
It certainly looks like they're trying to be more proactive this time. The focus on a broader platform, integrating AI for practical uses, not just novelty.
And the design partnerships, making them look less like tech gadgets.
All point towards a more, maybe thoughtful strategy, trying to avoid the same pitfalls.
But the big tech players aren't the only ones working on this stuff. You mentioned open source.
That's a really important angle. The AugmentOS project on GitHub is a totally different approach.
How so?
Their goals are pretty clear. Build glasses you can wear all day that are immediately useful and, critically, that are extendable, open for makers, startups to build upon.
Okay, so more grassroots. And is there interest?
Seems like it. The GitHub page shows, decent numbers for stars, watchers, forks. It suggests a real community is forming, or at least interested. Now, their last beta release was early 2023, so it's maybe not moving at lightning speed, but the tech stack HTML, C++ shows serious engineering effort.
And it contrasts sharply with the closed, proprietary Google XReal approach.
Completely. It's an alternative path. Potential for more user control, customization, maybe different kinds of innovation emerge from that.
So while Google and XReal go for this big, polished platform play,
the open source folks are building from the ground up. It offers different possibilities, maybe for niche users or smaller innovators.
Interesting. So we have these two paths emerging, but those fundamental challenges from the Google Glass days, they haven't just disappeared, have they?
Not at all. Privacy is still huge. I mean, a camera and microphone on your face. We need clear social norms, ethical guidelines, strong safeguards.
And people found workarounds even for the limited privacy features on Glass back then, right? Like those facial recognition apps.
Exactly. Unauthorized stuff. It just highlights how carefully this needs to be managed proactively.
And it wasn't just privacy. Safety was a big discussion, too, driving with them.
Oh, yeah. The debates about distraction. Remember that driver in California who got ticketed?
I do. Just for wearing glass while driving, though I think the case got dismissed later.
It did, but it sparked the conversation. And some studies back then suggested that even if you weren't actively using them, just having them on could potentially impair driving slightly.
Then there was the whole social side, the glass holes label.
Right. That perception of users being disconnected, overly engaged with the tech, ignoring the real world, finding that balance between utility and social acceptance, it's tricky.
It really is, yet the sources also point to some genuinely positive uses. Compelling ones.
Definitely. The medical field examples are striking. That Augmedix app letting doctors stream visits to remote scribes.
Saving documentation time.
Or using glass in complex surgeries for information display, or even remote lactation consultations. Really innovative applications.
And journalism, too. That VOA and Google Glass project exploring new ways to report.
These examples really show the potential, right? Enhancing efficiency, providing remote help, new communication methods. But the challenge is unlocking those benefits while properly managing the risks, the privacy, the safety. It's a constant balancing act.
So let's bring this back to you, the listener. You want to stay informed, but maybe you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by all the tech talk. What are the key takeaways here? It feels like this new Android XR push, with Project Aura out front, is really trying to learn from the past.
Seems that way.
There's more focus on a real platform, AI, for actual practical uses, not just, gimmicks. and paying way more attention to design, making them wearable.
That's a good summary.
Yeah.
The core tension is still there. Incredible potential utility versus the absolute need to nail privacy and safety.
Yeah.
Google's past experience with Glass is invaluable, hopefully. Their partnerships now suggest a more mature approach, but success isn't guaranteed.
It depends on navigating those challenges effectively.
Completely. How they and others handle those tricky issues will likely determine if smart glasses finally break through this time.
And it sounds like we'll get a much clearer picture of Project Aura's approach when more details drop in June.
Absolutely. That Augmented World Expo update will be crucial. We'll see how they're tackling these very concerns. Definitely something to watch.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking this deep dive with us into XReal's Project Aura and the fascinating, sometimes bumpy road of smart glasses.
It's definitely evolving.
Clearly, this tech is still figuring itself out, but this next chapter feels like it could be really interesting.
Indeed. And as you think about this tech in your own life, maybe ponder this. How will that balance between convenience and privacy ultimately shape adoption? What are you willing to trade? And what role will those open, community-driven platforms play in how this all unfolds?
Really important questions to consider. Thanks again for joining us for this analysis.
Thanks for listening.
We hope you'll stay tuned for our next deep dive.